The strangest man I ever met in Seoul spent 12 hours sitting beside me playing Grand Theft Auto. He barely spoke, he didn't flirt with me, he didn't even ask for my name. Are you sure?
Keep it.
I didn't know his name. I didn't know where he was going in Seoul. You always this quiet on 12-hour flights? But something about him felt on there. And I certainly didn't know that 3 days later, I would see that same face staring down at me from a billboard in the middle of Gangnam. And when I finally found out who the man beside me on that flight really was, I wished I had never given his jacket back. 3 days earlier, I had been standing in the Page International Airport, staring at my boarding pass like it contained no orogos, no dramatic sunglasses. Was it? Something about him kept drawing everyone's eyes. At first, I thought they were looking at me. When boarding was finally announced, I joined the line.
And about 20 minutes later, I discovered exactly who my seatmate was. 18A, window. 18B, middle. And 18C, him. I stopped beside the row. He looked up from his phone. Then at my boarding pass. Then back at me. 18C, he asked. I nodded. He stood immediately and stepped into the aisle to let me pass. Thank you. He gave a small nod. That's it. No introduction. No smile. I sat down and tried to make myself comfortable. A few minutes later, the plane began filling up. I pulled out my headphones. He pulled out a laptop. I glanced over. A game was loading on the screen. Then I saw the logo. Grand Theft Auto. I looked at him. He didn't notice. Or pretended not to. The safety demonstration started. He put on his headphones. The plane took off. And for the next several hours, that man barely moved. He played GTA. 4 hours. I tried to sleep. He played GTA. I watched 2 movies. He played GTA. I woke up somewhere over the ocean, looked over. He was still playing GTA. At one point, I couldn't help myself. I leaned slightly toward him. Do you ever get tired of that? He paused, turned toward me, and for the first time, I saw his eyes properly. Dark brown. Calm. Almost amused. He glanced at his screen. Then back at me. No. I laughed. That was a serious question. So was my answer. I smiled despite myself. What's your name? He hesitated. Just for a second. Then he said, June. June. He nodded. I held out my hand. I'm Amara. He looked at my hand for a moment before shaking it. His grip was warm. Nice to meet you, Amara. Then he released my hand, put his headphones back on, and returned to stealing virtual cars. I stared at him. I had never met anyone quite like him. And somehow, I had a feeling. I hadn't seen the strangest part yet. For the next few hours, June and I existed in our own little worlds. He had his game. I had my book. Occasionally, one of us would look out the window. Occasionally, we'd exchange a few words. Nothing important. Nothing that felt like the beginning of anything. At least, that's what I thought. About 6 hours into the flight, the cabin temperature dropped. I noticed it first in my hands. Then my shoulders. I tried to ignore it. I pulled my sleeves over my fingers and curled up against the window. The problem was that I had packed for Seoul weather. I hadn't packed for an airplane determined to turn itself into a freezer. I reached into my carry-on for a scarf. Nothing. I checked the front pocket. Nothing. I sighed quietly. Beside me, I heard a voice. You're cold. I looked over. June was still looking at his screen. I'm fine. You're shaking. I'm not. He finally looked at me. One eyebrow lifted. You are. I wanted to argue. Instead, I crossed my arms tighter. He sighed, paused his game, and pulled off his jacket. He held it out to me. Here. I stared at it. No, it's okay. Take it. You'll be cold. I won't. You don't know that. He looked at me for a second. Then, completely seriously, he said, I have survived worse. I laughed. Worse than airplane air conditioning? He nodded. GTA loading screen. I actually laughed out loud. A woman across the aisle glanced at us. June smiled faintly. Then he held the jacket out again. Seriously. Take it. This time, I did. Thank you. I slipped it over my shoulders. It was warm. And it smelled faintly like him. Clean. Woody. Something I couldn't quite identify. I pulled the sleeves over my hands. June looked at me for a moment. Then he turned back to his laptop. But he didn't immediately restart the game. Instead, he stared at the screen. "Do you like Seoul?" he asked. "I haven't seen it yet. I mean, what do you expect?" I thought about it. "Honestly?" He nodded. "I don't know." That made him smile. "Good answer." "Why?" "Expectations make people disappointed." I looked at him. That sounds suspiciously philosophical for someone who has spent 6 hours shooting imaginary police officers. He laughed. Actually laughed. It was the first time I had heard it. And for some reason, that tiny sound stayed with me. "You're judging me." "Absolutely. That's okay." "Why?" He shrugged. "I've been judged for worse things." There was something about the way he said it. The smile disappeared from his face almost immediately. I wanted to ask what he meant, but I didn't. Instead, I looked down at the jacket. There was something stitched inside the collar. A small symbol. I couldn't make it out in the dim cabin light. "What's that?" He looked at the jacket. For half a second, something changed in his expression. Then he gently pulled the collar toward himself. "Nothing." I frowned. "It's definitely something. Just a company logo." "Oh." I let it go. I didn't know why he had suddenly become guarded. Maybe it was expensive. Maybe it was sentimental. Maybe I was simply being nosy. So I leaned back against the window. A few minutes later, I fell asleep. I don't remember exactly when, but I remember waking up sometime later. The cabin was dark. Most of the passengers were asleep. And June wasn't playing GTA anymore. He was looking out the window. The glow from the screen had disappeared from his face. For the first time since we'd met, he looked lonely. I watched him quietly. He noticed. Our eyes met. Neither of us said anything. Then he looked away. And I closed my eyes again. I didn't know it then, but that was the moment I started wondering about the man sitting beside me. Not because he was handsome. Not because he had given me his jacket. But because I suddenly had the feeling that the quiet stranger beside me was hiding an entire life from me. And I was right. When I woke up again, the cabin lights were coming back on. We were less than 2 hours from Seoul. My neck hurt. My hair was a mess. And somehow, I was still wearing June's jacket. I looked over. He was awake. No laptop this time. No GTA. Just a cup of coffee in one hand, and his eyes fixed on the clouds below us. "You're awake," he said. "So are you." "I don't sleep much on planes." I noticed. He glanced at me. Then at his jacket. "You can keep it until we land." I looked down. "Oh, right." I started taking it off. "Actually, you can keep it." I stopped. "What?" "You're still cold." "No, I'm okay now." He shook his head. "Keep it." I smiled. "You're giving away jackets to strangers now?" "Only on international flights." I laughed. There was something easy about talking to him now. Like we'd known each other longer than we actually had. I turned toward him. "So, June, what do you do?" He took a sip of coffee. "Work." I stared at him. That is possibly the worst answer anyone has ever given me. He smiled. "I have a job." "What kind?" "Business." "What kind of business?" He looked at me. "You ask a lot of questions. And you give terrible answers." That made him laugh again. I pointed at him. "There. That. You do that every time I ask something you don't want to answer." "Do what?" "Smile." He looked genuinely confused. "I'm allowed to smile." "Not when you're hiding something." For the first time, he didn't have a quick answer. His eyes stayed on mine. Then he looked away. Maybe I am. I don't know why that answer stayed with me. Maybe because it was the first honest thing he'd said. A flight attendant walked down the aisle. "Would you like anything before we land?" I asked for water. June asked for nothing. A few minutes later, he turned toward me. "Do you have somewhere to go when you arrive?" "Yes." "Someone picking you up?" "No." He frowned. "You're traveling alone?" "Yes." "First time in Korea?" "Yes." "Then don't take a random taxi." I smiled. "I did my research." "Good." He pulled out his phone. "What's your hotel?" I hesitated. "Why?" "So I can tell you the safest way to get there." "I can figure it out." "I know." He paused. "But you shouldn't have to." Something about the way he said it made me quiet. I told him the hotel. He typed it into his phone. Then showed me the route. Airport train. Then taxi from a station. I looked at the screen. That's actually helpful. "I know." I rolled my eyes. "You're very confident." "I've been told." We both laughed. Then the captain announced our descent into Seoul. I looked out the window. For the first time, I saw Korea beneath me. Tiny roads. Clusters of buildings. Mountains in the distance. Seoul. I felt a strange excitement rise in my chest. Jun looked out too. But unlike me, he didn't look excited. He looked tense. I noticed. Everything okay? He nodded. Yeah. You don't look okay. He turned toward me. For a moment, he seemed like he was about to say something. Instead, he smiled. Welcome to Seoul, Amara. I smiled back. Thank you. The wheels touched the runway. Passengers began reaching for their bags. Jun closed his laptop. I stood and pulled his jacket off. He looked at me. Keep it. I shook my head. I can't take your jacket. You can. I don't even know you. He smiled. Now you know my name. That doesn't make us friends. Maybe it will. I laughed. Then I handed him the jacket. He took it. Our fingers touched. Just for a second. Neither of us moved. Then someone behind us cleared their throat impatiently. We stepped apart. Jun put the jacket over his arm. I picked up my bag. And just like that, the strange little world we'd created at 30,000 feet was over. I walked through the airport without looking back. At least. I tried not to. But before I reached immigration, I turned around. Jun was still standing. And he was watching me. When our eyes met, he smiled. Then he disappeared into the crowd. I never got his last name. So I assumed that was the end. I was wrong. It was only the beginning. For the next 3 days, I didn't think about Jun. At least, that's what I told myself. Seoul was too distracting. Everything was new. The language. The food. The trains. The crowds. The feeling of walking through a city where almost everything looked like it belonged in a movie. I spent my first day exploring. The second day, I got lost near Hongdae, ate the best noodles of my life, and nearly missed my train back to the hotel. And on the third morning, I decided to visit Gangnam. I remember walking out of the subway station with a coffee in my hand, looking up at the buildings around me. Then I stopped. There was a massive digital billboard across the street. A man in a perfectly tailored black suit stood against a dark background. His expression was serious. Confident. Completely different from the quiet guy who'd spent 12 hours playing GTA beside me. I barely looked at the advertisement. Until I saw the face. I froze. My coffee nearly slipped from my hand. Because I knew those eyes. I knew that jawline. I knew that tiny crease that appeared beside his mouth whenever he was trying not to smile. It was him. Jun. I stared at the billboard. Then at the people walking around me. Nobody else seemed surprised. A group of young women stopped nearby. One of them pointed at the screen. Oh my God. Her friend immediately pulled out her phone. He's back in Seoul. Another girl laughed. I thought he was in Singapore. I looked at them. Excuse me? They turned toward me. I pointed at the billboard. Who is that? They stared at me. Then at the billboard. Then back at me. You don't know him? I shook my head. The girl laughed. Seriously? I nodded. She looked at her friend like I'd just announced that I didn't know what a smartphone was. That is Kang Joon-Hyuk. My stomach dropped. Kang. What? Joon-Hyuk. She showed me her phone. There he was. Articles. Interviews. Magazine covers. Photos of him stepping out of black cars. Photos of him at corporate events. Photos of him standing beside politicians and celebrities. And underneath almost every picture was the same description. Kang Joon-Hyuk, Executive Chairman of Hanseong Group. I stared at the screen. Executive Chairman. Hanseong Group. I looked back at the billboard. Then at the phone. Then back at the billboard. No. The girl laughed. You know him? No. I paused. Well, technically. Her eyes widened. What do you mean, technically? I didn't answer. Because suddenly, something else had occurred to me. The jacket. The little logo I'd seen inside the collar. The logo he had quickly covered when I asked about it. I pulled out my phone. I searched Hanseong Group. And there it was. The same symbol. My heart started beating faster. The girl beside me was still talking. Everyone knows him. His family owns half the... I stopped listening. Because another billboard lit up across the street. Same man. Different photograph. This time he was standing beside a black luxury sedan. The caption read, Kang Joon-Hyuk returns to Seoul after months abroad. I stared at the words. Months abroad. My mind immediately went back to the plane. His plain clothes. His headphones. The GTA game. The way he had avoided my questions. The way he had said, maybe I am. Maybe I am hiding something. I suddenly felt ridiculous. How could I have sat beside someone like that for 12 hours and had absolutely no idea? Then my phone buzzed. It was a message from my best friend back in Lagos. Amora, are you seeing this man everywhere too? I stared at the message. Then I sent her a picture of the billboard. I sat beside him on my flight. The typing bubble appeared almost immediately. Then disappeared. Then appeared again. Finally, she sent. What? I laughed. But my laughter disappeared when another notification came through. This one wasn't from my friend. It was from an unknown Korean number. One message. No introduction. No explanation. Just 7 words. I think you still have my jacket. I stared at my phone. My mouth went dry. Because I had forgotten one very important thing. I hadn't returned the jacket. I had packed it in my suitcase. And suddenly, the man on every billboard knew exactly where I was. I read the message 3 times. I think you still have my jacket. My first thought was that it had to be a coincidence. Maybe someone else had sent it. Maybe he had somehow got my number at the airport. Then I remembered something. He didn't have my number. I had never given it to him. My hands suddenly felt cold. I looked around. People were walking past me. Cars were moving through the intersection. The giant billboard above me showed his face again. Perfectly calm. Perfectly composed. As if he wasn't currently sending messages to a woman who was standing beneath his photograph wondering how the hell he had found her. I typed, "How did you get my number?" The reply came almost immediately. "You gave it to me." I frowned. "No, I didn't." 3 dots appeared. Then disappeared. Then appeared again. Finally, "Check your phone." I opened my contacts. Nothing. I checked my recent messages. Nothing. Then I remembered something from a flight. When I had fallen asleep, my phone had been charging beside me. At some point, I had woken up and noticed the charging cable had been moved. I had assumed it was because I had accidentally pulled it. Now I wasn't so sure. I typed, "June, what did you do?" His response, "Nothing you didn't allow me to do." I stared at the screen. That sounded suspiciously like something a man in a thriller would say. I called him. He answered on the second ring. I didn't say hello. "Did you go through my phone?" Silence. Then I heard his voice. "You left it unlocked." "You went through my phone?" "I was trying to find your hotel." "That is not an answer." "I found your emergency contact." I closed my eyes. "You called my friend?" "No." "Then how did you get my number?" "I sent myself a message from your phone." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "You seriously used my phone to send yourself my number?" "You were asleep." "That makes it worse." He laughed. I hated that I could hear the smile in his voice. "You're angry." "Of course I'm angry." "Good. Good. At least you're not pretending to be polite anymore." I didn't know what to say. Then he became quiet. "Amara." Something about his tone changed. "Yeah. I need the jacket back." I looked down at my suitcase. "Why?" "Because it's important." "It's just a jacket." "No." His voice was suddenly serious. "It isn't." I waited. "What is it?" He didn't answer. "June. I'll explain when I see you." He was silent. Then he said something I didn't expect. "You're right." I blinked. "I am." "Yes." He exhaled. "I handled this badly." That disarmed me. "I should have told you who I was on the plane." "You think?" "I didn't want you to know." "Why?" Another pause. Then, "Because everyone treats me differently when they know." I looked up at the enormous billboard above me. There he was. The man everyone in Seoul apparently knew. The man who had spent an entire flight pretending to be nobody. "So you lied to me." "I didn't lie." "You told me your name was June." "It is." "You said you worked in business." "I do." "You left out the part where your family owns one of the biggest companies in Korea." "I didn't think you'd care." I laughed. "That's because you didn't give me a chance to." He went quiet. Then he said, "I'd like to." "To what?" "Please just give me a chance." My heart did something stupid. I hated it. I hated that his voice could still make me feel the same strange warmth I'd felt on the plane. So I changed the subject. "Where do you want to meet?" He gave me an address. A cafe about 15 minutes from where I was standing. "I'll be there." I hung up. For several seconds, I just stood there. Then I looked at the billboard again. I had spent 3 days thinking about the stranger beside me on the plane. Now I knew exactly who he was. And somehow, that made him feel even more mysterious. I reached into my suitcase and pulled out his jacket. As I held it up, I noticed something I hadn't seen before. There was a small inside pocket. I put my fingers into it. Something was there. A folded piece of paper. I opened it, and my heart stopped. It wasn't a receipt. It wasn't a business card. It was a photograph. A photograph of June. But he wasn't alone. He was standing beside a young woman. And written across the back in black ink were 6 words. If you see him, stay away from him. I stared at the photograph until the words on the back began to blur. I turned it over again. June was standing beside a woman I'd never seen before. She was beautiful. Long dark hair. Elegant dress. Her hand rested lightly on his arm. And unlike the man I'd met on the plane, June was smiling. Not the small, guarded smile I'd seen when I teased him about GTA. A real smile. The kind that reached his eyes. I looked at the photograph again. Then at the jacket. Then back at the message on my phone. I need the jacket back. Suddenly, the cafe didn't seem like such a good idea. I should have walked back to my hotel. I should have returned the jacket through someone else. I should have ignored him. Instead, I put the photograph back into the pocket and went to meet him. I don't know if that was bravery or stupidity. Probably both. The cafe was on a quiet side street away from the busiest part of Gangnam. I arrived 10 minutes early. I chose a table near the window and waited. 5 minutes passed. Then 10. Then I saw a black sedan pull up outside. A man in a dark suit stepped out first. Then another. Then June. Except he didn't look like June. Not the man from the airplane. This man wore a perfectly tailored charcoal suit. No headphones. No laptop. No ridiculous GTA game. His hair was styled neatly, and 2 men followed him into the cafe. Every employee seemed to straighten the moment he entered. I suddenly understood. This was the man from the billboards. Not my seatmate. Not the quiet guy who had given me his jacket. Kang Joon-Hyuk. He spotted me immediately. He said something quietly to the men behind him. They stopped. Then he walked toward my table alone. He sat opposite me. For several seconds, neither of us spoke. Then his eyes dropped to the jacket beside me. You brought it. I pushed it across the table. I did. He reached for it. But before he could take it, I put my hand over it. His eyes lifted to mine. What is this? I pulled the photograph from the pocket. His entire expression changed. The color seemed to leave his face. He didn't touch the photograph. He just stared at it. Where did you find that? In your jacket. His jaw tightened. Who gave you this? It was already there. Amara. His voice was low now. Who gave you this? Nobody. I pushed the photograph toward him. You did. He looked down. For the first time since I'd met him, June looked genuinely frightened. I leaned forward. Who is she? He didn't answer. Is she your girlfriend? Nothing. Your ex? Still nothing. Your wife? His eyes snapped toward mine. No. The answer came so quickly that I almost believed him. Almost. Then who is she? He picked up the photograph. His thumb ran across the woman's face. She was supposed to be my wife. I sat back. Supposed to be? He nodded. 3 years ago. What happened? He looked toward the window. She's dead. I froze. The cafe suddenly felt very quiet. I'm sorry. He didn't respond. He kept staring at the photograph. She died 2 years ago. I didn't know what to say. Then I noticed something. There was another person in the photograph. A small figure standing several feet behind them. A little boy. Maybe 8 or 9 years old. I pointed. Who's that? June's expression changed again. This time, there was something almost protective in his eyes. My brother. I looked at him. You have a brother? He was 6 when that picture was taken. And now? 10. I nodded slowly. Then I remembered the warning. If you see him, stay away from him. I looked back at June. Who wrote that? He didn't answer. I asked again. Who wrote the message? His phone began ringing. He glanced at the screen. His expression hardened. He rejected the call. A second later, it rang again. He rejected it again. Then a message appeared. I couldn't read the entire thing, but I saw the first few words. We know about the girl from the flight. June immediately locked his phone. My stomach dropped. You knew someone was watching me? No. Then why are they talking about me? He stood. Because someone knows I met you. June. Amara. Listen to me carefully. He leaned toward me. For the next few days, don't go anywhere alone. I stared at him. That's not exactly comforting. I know. Who are these people? He looked at the jacket on the table. Then back at me. I don't know yet. That frightened me more than if he'd given me a name. Because for the first time, I realized something. The billboard wasn't the biggest secret about June. His wealth wasn't the biggest secret. And the woman in the photograph wasn't the biggest secret either. Whatever was happening around him, he had brought it with him onto that airplane. And somehow, without knowing it, I had stepped directly into it. Then June said something that made my blood run cold. The jacket wasn't meant for you. I frowned. What does that mean? He looked at me. It means whoever put that photograph inside it knew you would eventually find it. I didn't understand. What do you mean, it wasn't meant for me? June looked toward the cafe entrance. Then toward the windows. He lowered his voice. The photograph was never supposed to be in that jacket. Then how did it get there? I don't know. You're telling me someone put a photograph and a warning inside your jacket, gave it to you, and somehow I ended up wearing it? Yes. That makes no sense. I know. He rubbed his forehead. For the first time, he looked less like the powerful man from the billboards and more like the exhausted stranger I'd met on the plane. I leaned closer. Who would want to scare you? He didn't answer immediately. My family has enemies. I almost laughed. That's very vague. I know. June, I met you 3 days ago. First, you were a mysterious guy playing GTA on a plane. Then I find out you're one of the most powerful businessmen in Seoul. Then I find a photograph of your dead fiancé inside your jacket with a warning telling me to stay away from you. He looked at me. And now you're telling me your family has enemies? Yes. I shook my head. This is insane. I agree. Then why did you bring me here? His eyes softened. Because I wanted to see you. That stopped me. For a second, neither of us spoke. Even after all this? Yes. Why? He smiled faintly. Because on that flight, you were the only person who didn't know who I was. I looked down. He continued. You didn't care about my family. You didn't care about my company. You didn't care about my money. I didn't know about any of those things. Exactly. I smiled despite myself. I cared about your terrible GTA skills. He laughed. You watched me play? Everyone on that plane watched you play. I wasn't that bad. You crashed the same car 3 times. That was intentional. Of course. For a moment, the tension disappeared. It was just us again. The way it had been on the plane. Then his phone rang. He looked at the screen. This time, he answered. Hello. He listened. His expression changed. Where? A pause. I'm coming. He ended the call. What happened? He stood. I need to leave. Is everything okay? No. He picked up the jacket. Then stopped. He looked at me. You should come with me. I stared at him. Excuse me? I don't want you alone. June, I'm not getting into a mysterious black car with a man whose dead fiancé's photograph was hidden in his jacket. He smiled. That's fair. Then he leaned down slightly. But there's something you need to know. What? The photograph wasn't the only thing inside that pocket. He reached inside. His fingers disappeared beneath the lining. Then he pulled out a tiny memory card. I stared at it. What is that? I don't know. You're just finding this now? Yes. Why didn't you check the jacket before? Because I didn't know someone had hidden things inside it. He turned the card between his fingers. And whoever put it there didn't want me to find it. Then why give you the jacket? His eyes met mine. They didn't. My stomach tightened. What? June looked at me for a long moment. They gave it to you. I felt a chill run through me. Why me? I don't know. He slipped the memory card into his pocket. But I'm going to find out. He reached for the cafe door. I stood. June. He turned. I'm coming. He looked surprised. You're sure? No. I picked up my bag. But apparently I've already made one terrible decision by meeting you. A small smile appeared on his face. So you might as well make another. Don't get excited. I won't. We walked outside. The black sedan was waiting. One of his security men opened the rear door. I hesitated. Then I noticed something across the street. A man standing beside a parked motorcycle. He was watching us. The moment our eyes met, he turned away. I grabbed June's arm. Do you know him? June looked across the street. The man was already gone. His expression hardened. Get in the car. I did. June followed. The doors locked. The car pulled away. I looked through the rear window. The man on the motorcycle appeared at the end of the street. He wasn't following us. He was simply standing there, watching. And as we disappeared into Seoul traffic, I suddenly realized something. I'd spent the entire morning wondering why a stranger would give me his jacket. Now I was sitting inside his car, carrying a secret memory card, and wondering whether meeting him had been the biggest mistake of my life. Then June reached across the seat. His fingers brushed mine. I looked at him. He didn't say anything. Neither did I. But he didn't move his hand away. And somehow, in the middle of all that fear, I felt safe. That was the part that scared me most. The car moved through Seoul in silence. For several minutes, neither of us spoke. My hand was still beside June's. Our fingers weren't touching anymore, but I could still feel the warmth from where they had. I looked out the window. Seoul rushed past us in streaks of neon and glass. People crossed streets. Buses moved between lanes. Huge advertisements flashed above buildings. And everywhere I looked, there was his face. June noticed me staring. "You're going to get tired of seeing that." I looked at him. "Your face is literally everywhere." He sighed. "I know. You really don't like it, do you?" "What?" "Being famous." He looked out the window. "No." "Why?" "Because people think they know you." I waited. "They see the clothes, the cars, the company, the interviews." He glanced at me. "But they don't see the person." I smiled. "I saw the person." His eyes stayed on mine. "What did you see?" I thought about the flight, the GTA, the jacket, the way he looked out the window when he thought I wasn't watching. A man who plays too much GTA. He laughed. "That's all. And a man who gives away jackets." "That sounds better." "Don't get carried away." "I won't." The car slowed. We pulled into an underground parking garage beneath a modern building. I looked around. "Where are we?" "My office." "You have an office?" He gave me a look. "I'm beginning to think you don't understand what I do." I understood perfectly well 3 hours ago. We stepped out. 2 security guards greeted him. June nodded and led me toward a private elevator. As the doors closed, I looked at him. "Are you sure this is safe?" "Yes. You said that before." "I was wrong before." I stared at him. "That is not reassuring." He smiled. "I know." The elevator opened directly into a quiet office. It was enormous. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city. There were shelves of books, minimalist furniture, and almost nothing personal. No photographs. No awards. No family pictures. Just work. June walked toward a desk. He pulled out his laptop. "Sit." I sat opposite him. He inserted the memory card. A folder appeared. 1 file. No name. He clicked it. The screen went black. Then a video began. The image was grainy. Security camera footage. A hotel corridor. I leaned closer. June went completely still. The timestamp showed 3 years earlier. A woman walked into the frame. The woman from the photograph. June's fiancé. She looked behind her. Then entered a room. A few seconds later, a man followed. June leaned forward. "Pause." I did. He stared at the man. "Who is he?" "I don't know." June zoomed in. The image became blurry. But something about the man's posture seemed familiar. Then the video continued. The woman came back out. She was holding an envelope. The man reached for it. She refused. They argued. Then she walked away. The man followed. The footage suddenly cut to black. June didn't move. I looked at him. "What happened after that?" His voice was barely audible. "She died 2 days later." I swallowed. "Was it an accident?" He shook his head. "No." I stared at him. "You think someone killed her?" "I know someone did." The room became silent. Then I noticed something on the screen. A reflection in the hotel window. A second man. Standing behind the camera. Watching everything. I pointed. "June." He looked. "What?" "Zoom in there." He did. The image sharpened slightly. June's face changed. I watched him carefully. "Who is that?" He didn't answer. "June." He stood so quickly that his chair rolled backward. "Stay here." "Where are you going?" "I need to make a call." "About who?" He was already walking toward the door. Then he stopped. He turned around. For the first time, there was no mystery in his face. Only fear. "That's my father." I stared at the screen. His father. The man who had apparently been standing behind the camera while his future daughter-in-law was being threatened. June looked at me. My father told me the accident was investigated. I said nothing. He told me there was nothing suspicious. He looked back at the screen. But he was there. The realization hit both of us at the same time. June's father hadn't simply known about the woman's death. He had been present shortly before it happened. And suddenly, the warning inside the jacket made sense. If you see him, stay away from him. I looked at June. Who was the message talking about? He didn't answer. Because his phone had started ringing. He looked at the screen. The caller ID made his face go completely pale. Dad. June answered. Hello. There was silence on the other end. Then his father's voice came through the speaker. Calm, cold, and unmistakably angry. I told you to stay away from the girl. June looked at me. My heart stopped. His father continued. She has no idea what she's carrying. June's eyes dropped to my bag. I looked down too. Then I remembered. The jacket. I had put the photograph back inside. And the memory card. Wasn't in June's pocket anymore. It was gone. Someone had taken it. While we were watching the video, June looked toward the office door. It was still closed. The windows were sealed. There was nobody else in the room. Then a notification appeared on his laptop. File transfer complete. Someone had copied the video. And whoever had done it was still inside the building. June stared at the laptop. I stared at him. Neither of us spoke. The words on the screen were still there. File transfer complete. Where's the memory card? I whispered. June checked his pocket. Nothing. He checked the desk. Nothing. Then he looked at me. Don't move. That was the last thing I wanted to hear. I immediately stood. Why? Because whoever took it was close enough to reach my computer. He walked toward the office door. I followed. June. He stopped. Stay behind me. Something in his voice made me obey. He opened the door slowly. 2 security guards were standing outside. June looked at them. Did anyone come in? No, sir. Anyone leave? No. He glanced down the hallway. Everything looked normal. People were working. Phones were ringing. Someone was carrying a stack of documents. Nothing seemed unusual. June turned back toward the office. Then one of the security guards spoke. Sir. June looked at him. Your father is here. My stomach tightened. Where? The guard pointed toward the private elevator. On the executive floor. June's expression became unreadable. Did he come alone? No. How many people? 4. June looked at me. You need to leave. I shook my head. No. Amara. I'm not leaving you here. This isn't your problem. It became my problem when someone put that photograph in my jacket. He stared at me. For a moment, neither of us moved. Then he reached for my hand. His fingers wrapped around mine. Stay with me. We walked toward the elevator. The doors opened. And there he was. June's father. Kang Tae-woo. He looked exactly like the kind of man who had spent his entire life being obeyed. Late 60s. Silver hair. Perfect suit. Calm expression. He looked at June first. Then at me. Then at the jacket hanging over my arm. His eyes stopped there. Just for a second. But I saw it. He knew. June stepped between us. What do you want? His father ignored him. He looked directly at me. You're Amara. It wasn't a question. I felt June's hand tighten around mine. Yes. His father smiled. You look different from the photograph. My heart stopped. What photograph? He didn't answer. June's voice became cold. Dad. His father finally looked at him. You were warned. About what? About repeating the same mistake. June took a step forward. You knew. His father didn't react. You knew what happened to Sumin. The name seemed to change the air around us. His father's expression hardened. Not here. Then where? You don't understand what you're involved in. June laughed bitterly. That's what everyone keeps telling me. His father looked at me again. Give me the jacket. I froze. June immediately said. No. His father didn't look at him. Give me the jacket. I held it tighter. Why? His father's eyes narrowed. Because you don't know what it contains. I looked at June. Then back at his father. You're right. I reached into the jacket pocket. And pulled out the photograph. His father's face changed. Only slightly. But enough. June saw it. So you knew. His father looked at the photograph. Then at his son. I knew the photograph existed. Who put it there? Silence. Who put it there? His father sighed. Your mother. June froze. My mother? She wanted you to know the truth. Then why didn't she tell me? Because she was afraid. Of you. His father said nothing. June's jaw tightened. Then a sound came from behind us. A phone vibrating. Everyone turned. One of the security guards reached into his pocket. It's not mine, he said. The other guard checked his phone. Not mine either. The vibration continued. I suddenly realized where it was coming from. My bag. I slowly opened it. Inside was a phone I had never seen before. June stared at it. Don't touch it. Too late. The screen lit up. One message. You should have left Seoul. Then another arrived. Now you both know too much. June grabbed my wrist. Move. What? Now. His father suddenly shouted something in Korean. The security guards turned toward the hallway. And then, the lights went out. Complete darkness. Someone screamed. Glass shattered somewhere behind us. June pulled me against him. I felt his arm wrapped tightly around my waist. Don't let go, he whispered. I couldn't see his face, but I could feel his heartbeat. Fast. Hard. Just like mine. Then, somewhere in the darkness, I heard footsteps running toward us. June moved in front of me. Stay behind me. The emergency lights flickered on. A man was standing at the end of a hallway. Black jacket. Black cap. His face partially covered. He looked directly at me. Then at June. And before the guards could reach him, he turned and disappeared through the stairwell. June ran after him. I followed. June. He stopped halfway down the stairs. I nearly crashed into him. He was staring at the floor. Something had been dropped. A small black object. He picked it up. A USB drive. There was a handwritten label on it. Just 2 words. For Amara. I looked at June. He looked back at me. Neither of us spoke. Because suddenly, we understood something terrifying. Someone hadn't chosen me by accident. Someone had known my name before June ever met me. And the man on that flight might not have been the person who brought me into this mystery. He might have been the person they used to bring me into it. I stared at the USB drive in June's hand. For Amara. My name. Not a nickname. Not the girl. My actual name. I suddenly felt sick. June. He didn't answer. He was staring at the USB as if it might explode. Who knows my name? His jaw tightened. I don't know. You keep saying that. I know. You said you didn't know who was following me. I didn't. You said you didn't know who put the photograph in your jacket. I don't. And now someone leaves a USB with my name on it? He looked at me. I know how this sounds. It sounds like you knew exactly who I was before we ever boarded that plane. His expression changed. Amara, I didn't. Then explain it. He couldn't. And that scared me more than anything else. I stepped back. Maybe I should leave. His eyes immediately lifted. No. Why? Because whoever is behind this wants you alone. And staying with you is supposed to make me safer? Yes. Why? He took a breath. Because they're afraid of me. I almost laughed. Your father doesn't look afraid of you. He isn't the one I'm worried about. Then who? June looked down at the USB. The people who killed Soo-min. The name hung between us. I didn't know what to say. He slipped the USB into his pocket. We're leaving. Where? My apartment. I stared at him. Your apartment? Yes. Absolutely not. He almost smiled. Then my guest house. That's somehow worse. Why? Because this sounds exactly like the beginning of a terrible decision. He laughed quietly. And for a moment, everything felt normal again. Then he looked at me. Amara, I need you to trust me. I looked into his eyes. That was the problem. Somehow, despite everything, I did. We left through a private exit. The drive to his apartment was quiet. But this time, I wasn't staring out the window. I was staring at him. At the man I had met 3 days earlier as a stranger with headphones and a laptop. The man who had played GTA for almost an entire flight. The man who had given me his jacket because I was cold. And the man whose family now seemed connected to a woman's death. I finally broke the silence. Can I ask you something? Yes. Why did you give me your jacket? He looked confused. What? On the plane. You were cold. No. He glanced at me. What do you mean? I mean, why did you really give it to me? He was quiet. Then he smiled. Because you were shivering. That isn't the whole answer. He looked out the window. You noticed. What? You noticed everything. I waited. He sighed. Fine. He turned toward me. I gave you the jacket because I wanted an excuse to talk to you. I blinked. What? I noticed you before you sat down. My heart skipped. You did? Yes. Then why did you spend the entire flight playing Grand Theft Auto? He laughed. Because I was nervous. I stared at him. You? Yes. You were nervous around me? Very. I couldn't help smiling. You looked completely uninterested. I was pretending. Why? Because you were beautiful. I looked away. The warmth rushed into my face. He continued. And I didn't want you to think I was interested because of where I came from. I looked back at him. You could have just talked to me. I tried. You answered every question with one word. I was panicking. I laughed. You were panicking? Yes. While playing GTA. GTA helps. I shook my head. You're ridiculous. Probably. For the first time since all of this started, I felt the fear loosen its grip. Then Jun's phone rang. He answered. Hello. He listened. His smile disappeared. Are you sure? A pause. Send it to me. He hung up. I looked at him. What happened? He turned toward me. We found the man from the hotel footage. My heart stopped. Who is he? Jun stared at me. Then he said something I wasn't prepared to hear. He isn't a stranger. Who is he? Jun swallowed. He's my uncle. I stared at him. The same uncle who disappeared after Suman died? He nodded. He's alive. I felt a chill run through me. Then why did everyone say he was dead? Jun looked at me. Because my father told them he was. The car became silent. I reached for his hand without thinking. He looked down at our fingers. Then at me. And this time, he didn't pull away. Instead, he turned his hand over and held mine. I'm sorry, he whispered. For what? For bringing you into this. I squeezed his hand. You didn't. He looked at me. I chose to meet you. His eyes softened. And I chose you. Neither of us spoke after that. But something had changed. The fear was still there. The mystery was still there. The danger was still there. But somewhere between the airplane, the jacket, the billboards, and the secrets, the stranger beside me had stopped feeling like a stranger. And that was exactly what made what happened next so painful. Because when we arrived at his apartment, the front door was already open. Jun stopped. I stopped behind him. He looked at me. I looked at him. Then I whispered, Is this normal? No. Good. Because I was starting to think Korean people just had a very relaxed approach to home security. He almost laughed. Stay here. No. He looked at me. You're getting very brave. I've watched enough movies to know that the person who says stay here is usually the first person who gets into trouble. He shook his head. You really talk too much. And you play too much Grand Theft Auto. We all have problems. That finally made him smile. He pushed the door open. Hello. Nothing. The apartment looked completely normal. No broken furniture. No signs of a struggle. No mysterious masked men waiting behind curtains. Just one very obvious problem. Someone was sitting on his couch. I nearly screamed. Then the man turned around. He was eating ramen. Jun stared at him. The man stared at Jun. Then he looked at me. Oh, he said. You brought her. Jun closed his eyes. Min-suk. The man smiled. Nice to meet you. I looked at Jun. Who is this? My cousin. Min-suk held up his chopsticks. I prefer favorite cousin. You're my only cousin in Seoul. Exactly. I stared at both of them. You broke into his apartment? Min-suk looked offended. I have a key. Jun walked over and took the bowl from him. You've been eating my food. You weren't here. So you thought you'd move in? I was hungry. I couldn't help laughing. After everything we'd been through that day, somehow the biggest threat to Jun's apartment was his cousin stealing noodles. Min-suk looked at me again. So you're Amara. I froze. How do you know my name? He pointed at Jun. He talks. I looked at Jun. He suddenly looked very interested in the floor. You talked about me? A little. How much is a little? Min-suk grinned. Enough to know you stole his jacket. I didn't steal it. He gave it to me. That's not what he told me. Jun gave him a warning look. Min-suk immediately shut up. I folded my arms. Oh, this is interesting. It isn't, Jun said. It definitely is. Min-suk stood. I'll leave you two alone. He walked toward the door, then stopped. Oh, June. What? Your father called. June's expression changed. What did he say? He said you're making a mistake. June sighed. Of course he did. Min-suk looked at me, then smiled. Apparently, that's his favorite sentence. And he left. The door closed. I looked at June. Your family is exhausting. You have no idea. He walked toward the kitchen. Are you hungry? I stared at him. That's your response? Yes. Your father thinks we're making a mistake. Someone is following us. There's a mystery USB with my name on it, and your cousin is eating your noodles. He opened the refrigerator. And you're asking if I'm hungry? He looked over his shoulder. Stress makes me hungry. I laughed. Fine. What are you making? He stared at the contents of his refrigerator. Eggs. That's it. I'm a very successful businessman. Congratulations. I don't cook. I laughed again. You know, on the plane I thought you were mysterious. And now? Now I think you're helpless. He smiled. That's why I need you. Something about the way he said it made me pause. Then he handed me an apron. Come on. You're putting me to work? You're the one who said you could cook. I never said that. You implied it. I absolutely did not. 20 minutes later, we were standing in his kitchen arguing over scrambled eggs. And for the first time since I arrived in Seoul, I forgot about the billboards. The photograph. The USB. His father. Everything. It was just me and the man from the airplane. The man who couldn't cook. The man who had somehow become the most confusing part of my entire trip. And while we were eating, June suddenly said, Amara. I found out who sent the USB. I put my fork down. He looked at me. It wasn't my father. Who was it? He reached for his phone, then showed me a photograph. I stared at the screen. My smile disappeared, because the person standing beside June's dead fiancé in the new photograph was someone I knew, someone I had met before coming to Seoul, someone who had been in Lagos. And suddenly, I understood why I'd been brought into this. It had nothing to do with June. It had started before I ever boarded that plane. I stared at the photograph on June's phone. Then I stared at him. That's impossible. You know him? I nodded slowly. His name is Daniel. June's expression tightened. How do you know him? He helped me arrange this trip. June sat back. Your trip to Seoul? Yes. Explain. I picked up my phone. About 2 months ago, I was looking for someone who could help me with a travel booking. A friend recommended him. He works with a company that organizes international trips. June didn't say anything. He wasn't my friend. I continued. I barely knew him. We spoke maybe 3 or 4 times. And he knew you were coming to Seoul? Yes. Did he know your flight? I stopped. I think so. June exchanged a look with me. Then he stood. Show me his number. Why? Because I need to know whether he's the same person. I pulled up Daniel's contact. June took one look. His face changed. What? He turned the phone toward me. The number was saved under Daniel's name. But underneath it was something else. A company name. Hanseong International Holdings. I looked at June. That can't be right. It is. But he told me he worked for a travel company in Lagos. He does. I frowned. Then why is his company connected to yours? June sat down. Because Hanseong owns it. I stared at him. So you're telling me the man who helped arrange my trip works for your family? Yes. And you think he put me on your flight? I don't think. He looked at me. I know. I stood. Wait. My mind raced. Are you saying this whole thing was planned? No. Then what was planned? Your meeting with me. I shook my head. But why? June didn't answer. He picked up his phone and made a call. Find Daniel. A pause. Immediately. He hung up. I looked at him. You know what's funny? What? I came to Seoul because I wanted a quiet vacation. He smiled. You've had a very bad vacation. I've been kidnapped emotionally by a billionaire who plays GTA. He laughed. I didn't kidnap you. You kind of did. You followed me willingly. Under suspicious circumstances. Still willingly. I couldn't help laughing. Then his expression softened. Amara. I'm sorry. For what? For everything that happened after that flight. I looked at him. I don't think you planned any of it. I didn't. Then stop apologizing. He nodded. There was a short silence. Then I noticed something. June. Yes. If Daniel arranged my flight. He looked at me. Then why did you happen to be sitting beside me? Neither of us spoke. Because suddenly, the question wasn't whether we'd been brought together. It was who had arranged it. June's phone rang. He answered. Hello. His expression changed. What do you mean he's gone? He listened. Since when? Another pause. Then, don't let anyone leave the building. He ended the call. I looked at him. What happened? He stared at the screen. Daniel disappeared. When? 3 days ago. I frowned. 3 days. June nodded. The day we landed in Seoul. I felt a chill. He looked at me. Which means whoever arranged your trip knew exactly when I would be on that flight. I slowly sat down. Then I remembered something. June. What? Daniel didn't just arrange my flight. What else? I opened my phone and scrolled through my emails. I got a message from him a night before I left Lagos. I found it. Then turned the screen toward June. The message contained only one sentence. Your seat has been upgraded. June stared at it. You never paid for an upgrade? No. Who sent it? Daniel. He looked at me. Then at the message again. And suddenly, the most ridiculous detail of our entire story became important. I pointed at my original booking. My original seat was 24F. June looked confused. So, I pulled up his booking details. His seat was 24E. He stared at the screen. I stared at him. We both went silent. Because we hadn't met by accident. Someone had deliberately put us beside each other. For a few seconds, neither of us said anything. Then I looked at June. So someone literally arranged our seats? Yes. Why? I don't know. I pointed at him. You're supposed to be the rich, powerful one with all the answers. He gave me a tired look. I've noticed. Just checking. He looked at the booking information again. Your seat was changed the night before the flight. By Daniel. And mine was changed earlier that same day. By who? He pulled out his phone. I'll find out. He made another call. This time, he put on speaker. Check the passenger manifest for that flight, he said. I want every seat change made within 72 hours of departure. A voice on the other end answered. Yes, sir. And find out who authorized them. He ended the call. I sat back. So someone wanted us sitting together. June nodded. But why? He looked at me. Maybe they wanted me to meet you. I frowned. Why would anyone want that? He didn't answer. Then I remembered the photograph. The USB. The message. The mysterious phone. And suddenly, one possibility occurred to me. What if they didn't want you to meet me? June looked at me. What do you mean? What if they wanted me to meet you? He went quiet. I continued. Maybe I was supposed to find something. His eyes narrowed. The photograph. Or the memory card. Or something else. I reached into my bag. The jacket was still there. I pulled it out. June watched me. What? I've been thinking. That's dangerous. I threw him a look. He smiled. Sorry. I searched the jacket carefully. Inside. Outside. Every pocket. Nothing. Then I felt something strange beneath the lining. Wait. June came closer. I ran my fingers along the inside seam. There was a tiny opening. Someone had cut the lining and sewn it back together. June immediately grabbed a pair of scissors. He carefully opened the seam. A tiny folded piece of paper fell onto the table. I unfolded it. It contained a handwritten address. Nothing else. June read it. His face went blank. What? He took the paper from me. That's an old house. Whose? My mother's. I looked at him. You're telling me your mother is connected to this too? I don't know. June. I honestly don't know. He looked at the address again. She hasn't lived there in 15 years. Then why would someone hide it in your jacket? He looked at me. Because they want us to go there. I sighed. Of course they do. He smiled. You're getting used to this. No. I'm getting tired. Fair. He folded the paper. We'll go tomorrow. I looked at him. Tomorrow? Yes. Why not today? Because it's late. I glanced at the clock. It was nearly 10. It's not that late. You haven't eaten properly. I ate eggs. You ate 3 bites. I was busy investigating your family. Exactly. He stood. Come on. Where? Dinner. I stared at him. We're in the middle of a conspiracy. And you're hungry. I can eat later. He shook his head. You're not solving a conspiracy on an empty stomach. I laughed. You really are strange. You noticed that on the plane. We went downstairs. This time there was no security convoy. No dramatic entrance. Just June wearing a baseball cap and a hoodie. I looked at him. You look normal. That was the goal. You could actually walk around like this? Sometimes. Does nobody recognize you? A woman walking past us suddenly stopped. She stared at him. Then looked at me. Then back at him. June smiled politely. She smiled back and kept walking. I looked at him. She knew. Probably. So you're not disguised at all? No. Then why the hat? Fashion. I laughed. We found a small restaurant tucked away on a side street. June ordered several dishes. I stared at the table. Are we feeding 10 people? You said you were hungry. I said I was hungry. I didn't say I was preparing for winter. He laughed. And for the next hour, we didn't talk about his father. Or his dead fiancé. Or the people following us. We talked about food. Travel. Lagos. Seoul. And, somehow, Grand Theft Auto. I discovered that June had been playing the game since he was 13. He discovered that I'd never played it properly. So he challenged me. Tomorrow. To what? GTA. I laughed. You're serious? Very. If I win, you choose where we go. And if you win, you wear my jacket for another week. I looked at him. You really like that jacket? He smiled. No. He leaned slightly closer. I like you wearing it. I looked away before he could see me smiling. And for the first time, I realized something. Maybe the mystery had brought us together. But whatever was happening between us, that part wasn't planned. The next morning, June picked me up at 9. He was holding 2 coffees. I took mine. Peace offering? For what? For making you investigate my entire family. I smiled. Accepted. He started the car. I looked at him. So, are we going to your mother's mysterious abandoned house? Yes. Great. He glanced at me. You're not nervous? I am. You don't look it. I'm trying something new. What? Pretending I know what I'm doing. He laughed. It's working. The house was about 40 minutes outside central Seoul. It sat near a quiet river, surrounded by trees. It wasn't abandoned exactly. Someone had been maintaining it. The garden was trimmed. The windows were clean. June unlocked the front door. Inside, everything looked frozen in time. Old furniture, family photographs, bookshelves, a piano covered with a white cloth. I walked toward a photograph on the wall. It showed June as a child standing between his parents. He looked about 10. I smiled. You were cute. He looked over. Were. Don't get excited. He laughed. Then I noticed another photograph. June was older. Maybe 22. Standing beside the woman from the photograph. Sumin. I picked it up. You loved her. He nodded. I did. What happened? He was quiet for a moment. She discovered something about the company. What? Money was being moved through several subsidiaries. And she found out? Yes. Who is doing it? June looked at the photograph. My uncle. I frowned. The uncle from the hotel footage? Yes. But your father covered it up? My father knew about the financial fraud. He wanted to handle it privately. And Sumin. She wanted to expose it. I understood. And that's why she died. June nodded. Then he looked toward an old desk. My mother told me there was evidence here. We opened drawers. Nothing. Books. Letters. Old documents. Then I noticed the piano. What's under there? June looked. We moved the piano bench. Nothing. I crouched down. There was a small wooden panel beneath the piano. I pressed it. It opened. Inside was a box. June stared at it. That's it. He pulled it out. Inside were bank statements, photographs, and a small recorder. He pressed play. His mother's voice filled the room. If you're hearing this, then something happened to me before I could tell you. June went completely still. His mother continued. Your father didn't kill Sumin. I looked at June. But he helped hide what happened because he believed protecting the company was more important than the truth. The person responsible is someone you trust. The recording continued. Your uncle wasn't acting alone. June looked at me. Who else? His mother's voice answered. Daniel. I froze. The man from Lagos. The man who arranged my flight. The man who disappeared 3 days ago. Jun's eyes widened. His mother continued. Daniel was working with your uncle. They used Sumin's discovery to blackmail the family. When she refused, they made sure she couldn't expose them. The recording stopped. Silence. I looked at Jun. So Daniel arranged my flight. Yes. He knew about Sumin. Yes. He knew about you. Yes. And he put me beside you because... Jun looked at the evidence on the table. Because he needed someone he could use to get close to me. I swallowed. So I was bait. Jun shook his head. No. He took my hand. You were supposed to be. I looked at him. But you weren't. No. He smiled. Because I actually fell for you. I laughed nervously. That's your romantic way of explaining how badly this trip went? I'm trying. You need practice. He smiled. Then his phone rang. This time, he didn't answer immediately. The number was unknown. I looked at him. Answer it. He did. A man's voice came through. Daniel. You found the house. Jun stood. Where are you? Somewhere you won't find me. Why, Mara? A pause. Then Daniel laughed. She was never supposed to matter. Jun's expression hardened. She does now. Daniel hung up. I looked at Jun. He looked back at me. And despite everything we'd just discovered, he smiled. What? You're smiling. You said I mattered. You do. I shook my head. You're impossible. Probably. He picked up the box. Let's go home. I followed him out. But before we reached the car, I stopped. Jun. He turned. I think I still owe you a GTA rematch. He laughed. You're changing the subject. Yes. Why? Because I've had enough family drama for one day. He smiled. Fair. We got into the car. And for the first time since I arrived in Seoul, I wasn't wondering who Jun really was. I already knew. The stranger beside me on the airplane had become the man sitting beside me in the car. And somehow, I had started wanting him there. By the time we got back to Seoul, I had decided on two things. First, I was never trusting a travel agent again. Second, I was going to beat Jun at GTA. He seemed far too confident about the second one. We were in his living room that evening, sitting on opposite ends of the couch with two controllers. You realize, he said, I've been playing this game for years. And you played for approximately 30 minutes yesterday. 40. That doesn't help your argument. I pointed the controller at him. Just start the game. He smiled. Loser buys dinner. Deal. The game started. For the first 5 minutes, I was terrible. I drove into a wall. Then another wall. Then, somehow, a parked police car. Jun was laughing so hard he had to put down his controller. Stop laughing. You just committed 3 crimes in 30 seconds. I panicked. You're supposed to drive. I know. He was still laughing when my character finally escaped. See? I said proudly. You're improving. Thank you. You're still terrible. Jun. Yes. Focus on your own game. He did. For about 30 seconds. Then I heard him groan. What happened? I crashed. I burst out laughing. You crashed. Don't. This is beautiful. You distracted me. I didn't say anything. You laughed. That isn't a distraction. It is when I like your laugh. I went quiet. He looked over. I looked away. Focus, I muttered. He smiled. Yes, ma'am. 10 minutes later, somehow I won. I dropped the controller. I won. Jun stared at the screen. No. I jumped up. You lost. That wasn't a real win. It absolutely was. You crashed into a building. And still won. He shook his head. This is humiliating. I laughed. You owe me dinner. He stood. Fine. Where are we going? Anywhere you want. I thought about it. Not somewhere fancy. He smiled. Okay. And no security people. I'll try. And no family drama. I can't guarantee that. Then at least no dead fiancés. He laughed. Deal. We went to a tiny restaurant near the river. No cameras. No assistants. No fancy table. Just 2 people eating noodles and talking until almost midnight. At some point, Jun looked at me. Amara. Do you regret coming to Seoul? I thought about everything. The strange flight. The jacket. The billboards. The secrets. The fear. And him. No. He smiled. Good. Do you regret sitting beside me? Not for a second. I looked down at my food. Even though I beat you at GTA? That part is still under review. I laughed. Then his phone buzzed. He glanced at it. His smile disappeared. What? He turned the screen toward me. It was a message from Daniel. I have something that belongs to you. Then another message arrived. Come alone. June immediately stood. I looked at him. No. Amara. No. We've already done this. He smiled despite himself. You're not letting me go alone. Correct. He shook his head. You're stubborn. You knew that on the plane. He slipped his phone into his pocket. This time, we're doing it my way. What's your way? He looked at me. We don't chase him. He sat back down. We make him come to us. I smiled. Finally. A sensible idea. June's phone buzzed again. A photograph appeared. It was Daniel, standing outside an airport terminal. And beside him was a suitcase. My suitcase. The one I had left at June's apartment. I looked at the photograph again. Then I noticed the date. It had been taken 20 minutes earlier. June's face hardened. He's been inside my building. I looked at him. Then why would he send us this? June stared at the photograph. He wants us to follow him. I smiled faintly. Then let's make him think we're doing exactly that. June looked at me. You have a plan? Not yet. He laughed. That's reassuring. But I'm working on it. And for the first time, I realized something. I had come to Seoul expecting a vacation. Instead, I had found a mystery, a billionaire, a dead woman's secret. And somehow, my favorite person to play GTA with. I wasn't ready to leave any of it behind. Not yet. We went back to June's apartment. His security team was already checking the building, but I wasn't interested in waiting around. I looked at the photograph again. Daniel had my suitcase. Why does he have my suitcase? June looked at me. Because you left it here. No, I didn't. He frowned. I saw it in the guest room this morning. I shook my head. I moved it. When? After breakfast. Where? I pointed toward the hallway. The storage room. We both looked at each other. Then we walked there. The suitcase was gone. June opened the door. Nothing. I folded my arms. Well. He looked at me. You're surprisingly calm. I've been kidnapped by my own luggage. I've accepted that this trip is weird. He laughed. Then he crouched beside the empty space. What? There. He pointed at the floor. A small piece of black plastic. He picked it up. A tracking device. I stared at it. So they were tracking my suitcase? Yes. That's creepy. It is. Can we throw it away? Yes. Good. He dropped it into a metal container. Then he looked at me. Your plan? I smiled. We give Daniel what he wants. And what does he want? Evidence. June understood immediately. We make a fake copy. Exactly. He stared at me for a second. Where did you learn to think like this? I'm Nigerian. He laughed. That explains everything. We spent the next hour creating a fake set of documents. Nothing dramatic. Just enough to make Daniel believe we had found the financial records he was looking for. Then June sent a message from a number Daniel didn't know. I have the files. The reply came almost immediately. Bring them to the old warehouse near Mapo. Midnight. Come alone. June looked at me. Absolutely not. I raised an eyebrow. You said come alone. I meant me. I know. And you're staying here. No. Amara. June. He sighed. You're impossible. And you like me. He looked at me. Yes. The answer came so easily that I forgot what I was going to say. He smiled. That's becoming a problem. I looked away. Focus on the plan. I'm trying. At 11:45, we arrived near the warehouse. June's security team stayed several blocks away. I waited inside the car. He walked toward the building carrying a small case. Daniel appeared from the shadows. Older than I remembered. Tired. Nothing like the confident man who had arranged my trip. June stopped. You used her. Daniel looked at him. I needed you to listen. You could have called me. You wouldn't have answered. You put a woman in danger. Daniel looked toward the car. I never intended for her to be in danger. Then why put her on my flight? Because I knew you'd protect her. June went quiet. Daniel looked at the case. Do you have it? Yes. Give it to me. June held it out. Daniel opened it. He looked inside. Then laughed. It's fake. June smiled. I know. Daniel looked up. For the first time, he seemed impressed. You really have changed. I had a good teacher. Her. June glanced toward the car. Yes. Daniel shook his head. She was never supposed to be part of this. Neither was I, apparently. Daniel sighed. I didn't arrange the flight. June's expression changed. What? I didn't change your seats. Then who did? Daniel looked toward the darkness behind June. Your mother. June froze. My mother? She knew the truth was buried. She knew your father wouldn't tell you. She needed you to find it. Why use Amara? Daniel looked toward me. Because she knew you'd listen to someone you didn't know. June's face hardened. Where is my mother? Daniel hesitated. Safe. Where? Before Daniel could answer, headlights appeared at the end of the road. Several black cars. Daniel looked frightened. That's not my team. June turned. The cars stopped. His father's security team stepped out. And behind them was Kang Tae-woo. June stared at him. His father walked forward. Enough. June didn't move. You knew. His father looked at him. I knew your mother was trying to uncover the truth. You knew Soo-min was murdered. I suspected. You suspected? His father's face tightened. And I made the mistake of protecting the company instead of protecting my family. June looked at Daniel. Then who killed her? Daniel answered quietly. The person who ordered it wasn't me. Everyone went silent. June stared at him. Who? Daniel looked toward Kang Tae-woo. Then smiled sadly. You already know him. June's father closed his eyes. And I suddenly understood why he had been so afraid. Because the person behind Soo-min's death wasn't outside the family. It was someone who had been sitting at the head of the table the entire time. June's grandfather. The founder of Hanseong Group. The man everyone had spent years believing was too old and too ill to control anything. Except he wasn't. And he had one final reason for wanting June to stay away from the truth. If June exposed him, the entire family empire would collapse. For a few seconds, nobody moved. June looked at his father. Then at Daniel. Then back toward the cars. Where is my grandfather? His father didn't answer. June stepped closer. Dad. He's at the main residence. Then we're going there. His father shook his head. You don't understand what you're about to do. I've spent 3 years not understanding. His voice was calm. I'm done with that. I touched his arm. June. He looked at me. I didn't need to say anything. He nodded. We're going. His father looked at me for a moment. Then sighed. Fine. The drive to the family residence was strangely quiet. No one tried to stop us. No one gave a dramatic speech. It almost felt like everyone was simply tired of carrying the same secret. When we arrived, June's grandfather was sitting in the library. He looked exactly like every photograph I'd seen of him. Small frame. White hair. Perfect suit. A walking stick beside his chair. He looked at June. Then at me. And smiled. So, he said, this is the girl. June stopped. You know her? I know everything that concerns my family. That includes Amara? His grandfather smiled. Especially Amara. I felt June tense beside me. He stepped forward. Why? His grandfather looked at him calmly. Because you were becoming impossible to control. June laughed once. Not because anything was funny. You killed Soo-min because she found the accounts. His grandfather didn't deny it. She was going to destroy everything your family built. She was going to expose fraud. She was going to expose the family. Yes. His grandfather leaned back. You think companies survive because everyone tells the truth? June stared at him. They survive because people protect them. No, June said quietly. They survive because people trust them. For the first time, his grandfather's expression changed. June continued. Soo-min trusted this family. She was young. She was honest. She was reckless. She was murdered. Silence. His grandfather looked down. I ordered them to frighten her. June's jaw tightened. I didn't order her death. Daniel spoke from behind us. But you knew what would happen. Everyone turned. Daniel stepped forward. You told us to make sure she never spoke again. His grandfather glared at him. You were supposed to handle it. I did. And yet she's still causing problems 3 years later. June's face hardened. You're talking about her like she was an inconvenience. His grandfather looked at him. She was. That was the moment June stopped being his grandson. He was simply a man standing in front of someone who had destroyed the woman he loved. But instead of shouting, He took out his phone. You should know something. His grandfather frowned. June pressed a button. The recording from the house began playing. His mother's voice filled the room. Every word, every confession, every piece of evidence. His grandfather listened without moving. When it ended, June said, "It's already been sent." His grandfather looked at him. To whom? The board. The investigators. And the press. His father closed his eyes. I looked at June. He wasn't smiling. He wasn't angry. He simply looked relieved. The secret was finally out. His grandfather looked toward the window. Then you've destroyed your own family. June shook his head. No. He took my hand. I stopped letting you destroy it for me. We walked out. Outside, June stopped beside the car. I looked at him. How do you feel? He took a breath. Honestly? Yes. Hungry. I stared at him. Then laughed. After all that? He smiled. I told you. Stress makes me hungry. I shook my head. You're unbelievable. And you're still holding my hand. I looked down. I was. Neither of us let go. Then he said quietly, Amara. Thank you. For what? For staying. I smiled. I almost didn't. I know. You're lucky I liked your jacket. He laughed. No. He looked at me. I think I was lucky you were sitting in 24F. I smiled. 24F? Yes. Wait. I frowned. Didn't you say your seat was 24E? He nodded. Why? Because I changed it. I stared at him. You changed your seat? Yes. When? The day before the flight. My mouth fell open. But I thought your mother arranged it. He smiled. She arranged yours. I blinked. And you arranged yours? Yes. Why? He shrugged. I saw your name on the passenger list. I stared at him. You knew who I was? No. Then why did you change your seat? He smiled. Because your name sounded interesting. I laughed. That is the worst excuse I've ever heard. Maybe. He opened the car door for me. But it worked. And for the first time, I realized that maybe our meeting hadn't been one perfect plan. Maybe it had been a series of tiny choices. A seat change. A jacket. A stupid game. A conversation. And two people who were supposed to remain strangers. Who simply decided not to. The next few days were strangely normal. The investigation started. The board of Hanseong Group was in chaos. June's father stepped away from the company temporarily, and his grandfather was placed under investigation. Daniel agreed to cooperate with the authorities in exchange for protection. And me? I went back to being a tourist. Well, a tourist who occasionally had a billionaire following her around. You're staring, I said. June looked up from his coffee. I wasn't. You were. I was thinking. About? You. I rolled my eyes. You've become very comfortable with that answer. He smiled. We were sitting in a small cafe near the Han River. No security. No meetings. No family drama. Just coffee and sunlight. It was probably the most peaceful afternoon we'd had since I arrived in Seoul. And that's when I told him. My flight is tomorrow. His smile disappeared. I know. You knew. My assistant sent me your itinerary. I stared at him. That's slightly creepy. I asked. Still creepy. He smiled faintly. I didn't want to ask you. Why? Because I knew you'd tell me. I looked down at my coffee. I have to go home. I know. My work is there. I know. My life is there. He nodded. I know. I looked at him. You're making this very difficult. How? You're supposed to argue. He smiled. I could. Please do. Stay. I laughed softly. That's it. Stay. June. I know you have a life in Lagos. I do. I know you can't just abandon it. I can't. I know. He reached across the table and took my hand. That's why I'm not asking you to. I looked at him. He was quiet for a moment. Then he said, I want you to go home. That wasn't what I expected. You do? Yes. Why? Because I don't want you to stay because of me. My eyes softened. I want you to go back to your life. He squeezed my hand. And if you still want me in it. He smiled. Then we'll figure out the distance. I didn't know what to say. For the first time since meeting him, June wasn't trying to solve everything. He wasn't offering money. He wasn't arranging flights. He wasn't sending cars. He wasn't trying to protect me from every uncomfortable thing. He was simply giving me a choice. And somehow, that meant more than everything else. I looked at him. I do want you in my life. His smile appeared slowly. Good. But I have one condition. What? No more mysterious jackets. He laughed. Deal. No more secret family investigations. I can't promise that. June. Fine. And absolutely no more finding my phone number without asking. He nodded seriously. Agreed. I smiled. Good. He leaned back. And one more condition. What? You have to admit I won GTA. I stared at him. You absolutely did not. I let you win. You lost. I was distracted. You're such a liar. He laughed. And suddenly, I was laughing too. The kind of laugh that made my stomach hurt. The kind that made me forget tomorrow was going to hurt. Because I knew it would. The next morning, June drove me to the airport. He didn't bring security. He didn't bring anyone. Just himself. When we reached the terminal, he took my suitcase from the trunk. I looked at him. You're really carrying my luggage? I've carried heavier things. Like your personality. I hit his arm. He laughed. At the entrance, neither of us moved. People walked around us. Announcements echoed through the terminal. My flight was boarding in less than an hour. June looked at me. So this is goodbye. For now. He nodded. Then he reached into his bag and pulled out the jacket. The same jacket. The one from the flight. He held it out. I laughed. Seriously? Keep it. You're giving it to me again? Yes. Why? He looked at me. Because you looked better in it. I smiled. You're impossible. I know. I took the jacket. Then he stepped closer. For a second, neither of us said anything. He gently touched my cheek. Amara. I'm glad you were cold. I laughed through the tears forming in my eyes. That's a terrible thing to say. I mean it. I know. He leaned down and kissed me. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't rushed. Just warm. Quiet. The kind of kiss that felt less like an ending and more like a promise. When we pulled apart, I looked at him. Don't make me regret giving you my number. He smiled. Too late. I laughed. Then I walked toward security. I looked back once. He was still standing there, watching me. The same way he'd watched me walk away from our first flight. Only this time, I knew his name. I knew his secrets. And more importantly, I knew I loved him. I just didn't know how much yet. 3 months after I left Seoul, I'd almost convinced myself that long-distance relationships were a terrible idea. Almost. But June and I talked every day. Sometimes for hours. Sometimes for 5 minutes between meetings. He sent me pictures of Seoul. I sent him pictures of Lagos. He complained about the heat. I complained about his terrible Korean food recommendations. And somehow, despite the distance, he became part of my everyday life. There was only one problem. He kept promising to visit. And I kept telling him not to. Not because I didn't want him there. Because I did. Too much. But I didn't want him arriving in Lagos with 10 security guards, 3 black SUVs, and enough people to make my neighbors think the president had moved in. So one Friday afternoon, I was sitting at a cafe in Lagos answering emails when my phone buzzed. A message from June. What are you doing? I replied. Working. Obviously. His response came immediately. Busy? Very. Good. I frowned. Why good? No response. I called him. He didn't answer. I called again. Nothing. I was about to send an annoyed message when I heard a voice behind me. Still working. I froze. I knew that voice. Slowly, I turned around. June was standing behind me. No suit. No entourage. No security team. Just jeans, a white shirt, sneakers. And that ridiculous smile. I stared at him. What are you doing here? He smiled. You told me to visit. I told you to tell me before visiting. Yes. You didn't. I know. You flew from Seoul to Lagos without telling me? Yes. I stared at him. You're insane. Probably. Then he held up a small paper bag. I brought you something. I looked inside. A familiar Korean snack. I laughed. You remembered. I remember everything about you. That stopped me. He sat across from me. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then he looked around. So this is Lagos. I smiled. This is Lagos. I like it. You've been here 5 minutes. I've seen enough. That's because you haven't experienced traffic. He laughed. I'm prepared. You're absolutely not prepared. I brought sunglasses. I laughed. That won't save you. He smiled. I missed this. What? You. I looked down. You could have just said that. I wanted to make an entrance. You made an entrance. He reached across the table and took my hand. I meant what I said at the airport. I looked at him. About what? I didn't want you to stay in Seoul for me. I know. So I came here. My heart softened. You came all the way to Lagos? He nodded. I wanted to see your world. I smiled. You know Lagos isn't Seoul. I know. It's louder. Hotter. Traffic is terrible. I've heard. And nobody cares that you're a billionaire. He smiled. That's my favorite part. I laughed. You're serious? Yes. He leaned closer. I don't want you to fit into my life. He squeezed my hand. I want to fit into yours. For a moment, I couldn't speak. Then I noticed something poking out of his backpack. A laptop. I narrowed my eyes. No. He smiled. What? Don't tell me. He pulled it out. I started laughing. You brought GTA to Lagos? Of course. You traveled across the world with that? It seemed important. You are unbelievable. He opened the laptop. Rematch. I shook my head. You're obsessed. You beat me once. I beat you twice. That first one doesn't count. Why? You were lucky. I took the controller from him. Fine. He smiled. Ready? Always. We started playing. 5 minutes later, I crashed into a wall. June burst out laughing. You're still terrible. Shut up. Some things never change. I looked at him. He was smiling. And suddenly, I realized how strange life could be. 3 months earlier, I had boarded a flight to Seoul thinking I was going on vacation. I'd sat beside a stranger who played GTA for 12 hours. He gave me his jacket. Then I saw his face on every billboard in the city. I discovered secrets I never expected to find. I fell in love with a man I never planned to meet. And now that same man was sitting beside me in Lagos, wearing sneakers, eating Nigerian snacks, and losing badly at GTA. I smiled. June. Do you remember what you said to me on the flight? What? You said expectations make people disappointed. He looked at me. And? I smiled. I think Seoul exceeded my expectations. He smiled back. So did I. I pretended to think about it. Maybe. Don't push it. He laughed. Then he paused the game. Amara. Yes. There's something else. I frowned. What? He reached into his backpack. My eyes widened. He pulled out flight tickets. I have another flight tomorrow. I stared at him. Where are you going? He leaned closer. With you. I laughed. Where? Where you have always wanted to. I was speechless for a few seconds. Then I smiled, overwhelmed that he recalled that part and came all the way to make it a reality for me. Deep down, while we played Grand Theft Auto in that cafe, I could feel that what we shared was going to be the biggest love story of my life, and I knew still that this was just the beginning.